By you coming today, if you've used this soil test, it'll save you 20%. Use that. Everybody pull this out. Okay. I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to show you how to read this. It's called the Haney test. Dr. Richard Haney, ARS USDA, our sister agency, soil microbiologist. I met him in 2011. I had been looking for a soil test that would work. It was at Jim Harbach in Pennsylvania in a dairy. He's got 1,000 cows, 1,000 acres. We were walking a cornfield, and his field was dark green, and he uses dairy manure, and he's being covers. And I said, Jim, why did you put 50 pounds of urea on your field? He says, Ray, that's what my soil test told me to do. I said, what did that cost you? He said, that cost me 50 grand. I said, Jim, when's the last time you went on a vacation? When's the last time you took your staff and flew them all the way to Hawaii, had a whole darn week, and you pissed off $50,000, and that's what the soil test told him to do? And his corn looked fantastic. It wasn't until 2011 I met Rick Haney. And Rick came up with a soil test. What I love about scientists like Rick, he farmed. He did upholstery. If it was up to me, I would never allow young people to go get their master's and PhD right away. You need to go work for 2 years so you don't get conditioned in the system. Do not allow the young people, because then we become conditioned in the system like I got conditioned in NRCS. It's easy to get conditioned and not think outside the box. So Rick came up with a soil test that mimics nature. Biomimicry. He said, why don't we use a test that mimics the acids of the roots that comes out of the plant? So he went and did research and found the 3 most common acids. It's called the H3A extract. 3 common acids that plants leak. The current malic and the old test use caustic acids. That's not biomimicry. When you're listening to nature, you let her communicate. Use her acids, use her molarity, use her strength. So when his gentle acids is what the plant sees. Please understand, how does microbes bring nutrients? Several ways. The plants leak acids, help make it soluble. The problem with our soils, they're not soluble, they cannot bring solubility. When you exceed the nutrient cycling, it's because you do not have enough carbon flow to make nutrients soluble. You don't have enough food, energy for the microbes. The other thing that makes Haney's test stand out is there's 7 parameters, and I'm going to talk to you in a second about them. But he used sophisticated water analyzers. Brilliant. Finally, a scientist says, hey, why don't we use the acids of nature, and why don't we use a sophisticated water analyzer? So when you take your test in, you put water in it, and it brings up all the molecular compounds, and it reads it direct and tells you water-soluble carbon and gives you credit for water-soluble organic nitrogen. Let's go to the first one. Bring this out. This was done in 2012 in Mississippi. I had the Plant Material Center, and I can't remember the scientist's name, and I said, could you please, everybody follow me along. Everybody got this? Okay. The first one, these are all sandy Mississippi soils. The first one is poor no-till. Next one is conventional till, no-till and cover crops, then pasture, and then forest. Now, I want you to look at that first column. That is the Haney test, giving you credit. That's for the organic nitrogen. And when I tell you organic nitrogen, it means this. A carbon molecule is attached to the nitrogen molecule. Carbon is attached. That's organic nitrogen. When there is no carbon molecule, that's called inorganic nitrate. ammonium, no carbon molecule attached. Everybody with me? You need to understand that. Okay, the next column is the original, that orange column is the test, the conventional soil test gives you credit for that. That is nitrate nitrogen. When you see the N attachment, it's the nitrogen in that nitrate molecule. That's what it means. And then the green one, the far right, is the total nitrogen. So the Haney test is this. This is when I found out that we had something here. When I got this, the first person I sent this test to get tested is Jay Fuhrer. Gabe Brown, I sent it to ship it to North Carolina. I wanted to see what they came up. This is the premise, what I'm going to tell you. There's a saying, all computer models are wrong, some are useful. All soil tests are wrong, some are useful. What do I mean by that? All soil tests are wrong, some are useful. Anybody? Nobody's going to... Yes, sir. What does that mean?
You get the knowledge from the stuff.
Say that again.
You get the knowledge from the stuff that's useful.
Can it be useful? Guess what else I think about, guys? When you go to the doctor, is there any test that will tell you the human body completely how it functions? No. Why would we expect that from a soil test? It cannot. The soil is too dang complex. So I want you to start being like a doctor. I do, when you go to the doctor, I want you to do saliva, urine, fecal, CAT scan, every possible test because you're complex. Soil test is the same way. This is what I love about the Haney test. 7 parameters in one test. And you still get the old test too. So let me show you the difference of the test. Look at the first column. The Haney says you got 15 pounds in the organic. Now remember, that light green column you never got credit for. You never got credit for. And you still don't get credit for it if you use an old conventional soil test. Remember, you only get credit for the orange column. So poor no-till, no cover crops. When I mean poor no-till, crappy no-till, corn and soybean. No rotation, no covers. 15 pounds in the organic form, 11. Oh, guess what? The Haney says, no, you got 27 pounds, not 11. Look at the green column. We're giving you that test. We're going to give you credit for another 15 pounds you never got credit for. Look at conventional till. Same. 16 plus 10, 27. Now, same soil, 2 years of covers. 2 years of covers. 50 pounds in the organic form, 2.5 in the inorganic form. You now have 52 pounds credit of nitrogen that will be available to you this year. Plants can turn it on and take it from the organic form and make it available. Stephanie, what did they teach us in college? What were the 2 forms of nitrogen that was available and what they taught us in college? What did they teach us? The 2 forms of nitrogen. Everybody. Nitrogen and ammonium. That's it. I was perplexed by that. You know where the perplexion came? Go to the pasture. Read the pasture. 75 pounds in the organic form and 4 pounds of inorganic. Every time I went to the pasture and did a soil test, I always was low in nitrogen. I could only read 4 pounds, and the grass is this tall. I said, what the heck? Now we give you credit for 80 pounds of nitrogen. 75 plus the 4 is 80.29. This is why Russell Hidrick can reduce his fertilizer cost by 40%. True story. University of NC State and Georgia State approached Russell and said, Russell, we don't want you talking about the Haney test no more. Got in a pissy, me and Russell, universities, were in a pissy contest in North Carolina. Russell said, we're sick of you guys. Let's do this. Let's do a 5-year replicated study. You use your soil test, we're going to use the Haney test. When I told Russell about the Haney test years ago, he only did 25% of the farm. This is the result. First year, remember, Georgia State used biomass, NC State used some other form soil test. I don't know what it was. First year, Russell wins by $80 an acre. Second year, Russell wins again with a Haney test. Third year, the lady from Georgia started to realize she retires. The other researcher, pissed off, walks away and says, you're mining the soil, and left, and we never got a 5-year replicated study. You know what I've learned? I've only met one non-biased scientist in my life. They were dead. I'm biased. I am biased towards nature. I was biased the other way. I was taught the conventional model. I believed it. I do no longer believe it. I believe what nature does. Nature stores nitrogen mostly in the organic form, ladies and gentlemen, wrapped in amino acids and other forms. We have not been taking credit, and farmers have been going broke, and our rivers and lakes have been polluted, and we have a high stream of cancer all along the delta. Tired of it. And we had, you know who has been our biggest rebuttals? The universities. But guess what? We don't take money from the universities. Do you know how hard it was to get this test in NRCS? Took one person to destroy it and go to another test that did not work. Farmers that are using the Haney test can back off on fertilizer. I do not feel comfortable. I will not put my personal name on it. We did this in Australia, all over Latin America, all over. We have hundreds of thousands of tests to back off our point. Now, what do I want you to do? How many of you right here, raise your hand, have calibrated your soils? This is what calibration means. 0, half rate, full rate fertilizer. You've done it for 3 years. Raise your hand. Check strips. Last time I was in Minnesota, old grumpy man said, Ray, why should we trust you? You're a government employee. I said, I don't want you to trust me. I just want to ask you the same question I asked you. Have you done your check strips? Very quiet. I said, I got a deal for you. You follow this test, you do this for 3 or 5 years, and you give me the check for every dollar I save you. Silence. Guys, what makes Russell different? He does his calibration every year. You need to put your check strips. Give us 3 years of check strips. You do your own research. Yes, sir.
Do you do those check strips in the same spot every year, so 0, 0, 0 consistently, or do you move around?
What I want to see is you set them up in your soil types that are very common in your farm. Give us 3 years of that. 0 fertilizer, half rate, full rate. If you don't put a 0 check, you are guessing and you don't know where the nitrogen's coming from. Calibration tells me how much can your soil cycle without the crack. How much can they do on their own, guys? Stop writing checks. That's why you can grow 250 bushel corn, Russell, with 50 units. His soils are so healthy and they're cycling. This is a cycling soil. Right here. Yes, Mark?
Once we set that up, we can leave it each year, right, the same section.
Yes.
In the same spot.
And then run it towards, if your soil types go away, make sure that the plots go so that it overcomes the 2 soil types. If you have 2 soil types, make sure they overlap the soil types. Swath, guys. Put some flags. Do this. Save yourselves hundreds of thousands of dollars, guys. Fertilizer is too expensive. Stop writing checks to people that you don't need to write checks to. Now look at this. Go to the respiration. And this is an old test. This is 2012. The test is even better now. More sophisticated. Look at the respiration. Respiration is this. The Russians knew since the 1900s, the more your soil respires, the more activity it has. The more activity it has. The Haney test can measure this. It'll tell you the difference between this, 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 and this. Respiration. The more the factory workers, the more they're going to work, the more they're going to give heat, the more they're going to cycle nutrients for you. Look at the poor crappy no-till, 22. No-till by itself, 20. But look what happened with 2 years of covers. It went from 22 to 87 parts per million in 2 years. 2 years. Look at the forest. Look at the pasture. Kick butt. Go to the next column. That's the groceries. That's the refrigerator. Water, soluble organic carbon. That's the refrigerator. You'll come to me and says, but Ray, I've seen soils, guys, from Colombia. I just got back from Colombia. 38% organic matter. 38% organic matter in dairies. Guess what? They were hydrophobic and they weren't cycling. Organic matter is not always the standard. It's only one parameter. How much groceries? Who cares if you live in a 10,000 square foot home if you eat hot dogs every day? I'm not impressed. You know what I'm impressed? Water soluble carbon that those machines can bring up. Sophisticated water analyzers give you credit for it. It is what it is. I call the Haney test the blood sample of the soil. In the ancient book of Leviticus, the life was in the blood of the human body. It's the blood. You know what the blood of the soil is? Water with these molecules of carbon in it. Okay, look at the pasture and the forest. Look at the no-till and covers. They went from 120 to doubled to 224. Look at the forest, 539, 578. And the last column, soil health calculation. Write this down. 7 and below, your life sucks. The soil sucks. It's not in good condition. 7 and below. So when you get the Haney test, and if it's 7, I got a calibration thing that I got you in the next form. We'll talk about this in a second. So 7 and below, you know what I want to shoot for? 20s and above. I only see those rarely. I mostly see those in cover crop, no-tills, and pastures. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, everybody with me? Now notice the calculation for the crappy no-till. The worst, 5.2 than conventional. 2 years of covers, it doubled to 12.45. Look at the pasture, look at the forest. Kick butt. 20s. Yes, ma'am.
So, what is crappy no-till? Like, how do we make a distinction between crappy no-till and quality no-till?
Here's my definition. Rotational diversity and how long you have a living root in it. It's about carbon flow. Love no-till. Love no-till. I don't have a problem with corn and soybean. But if you don't have another living root in it, guys, it becomes crappy. I've seen conventional outperform no-till. And I'm a big fan of no-till. I love no-till. But no-till that rocks is with the covers. That's great no-till in my mind. Covers, biodiversity. This right here, are they cycling? If your residue is celebrating its 5th birthday, something's wrong. You're using too much chemistry, your rotation sucks. That's the problem. Okay, that's why I love this demonstration. Okay, now, let's look at the form. Yes, sir.
You have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, is that just 1 year being buried, or is that?
Yeah, that's just one season. 60 days. 60 days. Guys, I want you to walk into your no-till and covers. If you trip, you'll be decomposed. You come out naked. That's good no-till. And that you have to use a small handgun because the earthworms are taking you down. You know how many earthworms Russell had per square foot? I went all over and we measured 10 farms. Russell Hidrick was one of them. That kid had 78 earthworms in a cubic foot. Only one person beat him. Ohio Dury, over 90 earthworms per cubic foot. My gosh. Old Ray Stiers in North Carolina, he was killing more earthworms running his no-till drill than anything I could see. His soils were so soft. His percent organic matter was 6 and the forest was 3. He's been rolling covers since the 80s. He's just passed away 7 years ago. He was my mentor. Okay, guide. I provided a guide for you. So when you get the no-till, you get the soil test, you can interpret your own test. Yes, sir?
What's your ideal time to pull those samples?
Thank you for that question. Over soil temperature over 55 degrees. Soil temperature has to be over 55 degrees. Now, please, if you're going to use the test, first thing, I'm going to tell you 3 things wrap in your mind, very important. Do not get the conventional soil test, the old chemistry test, and the Haney test, and combine them. Do not compare them. They're apples and oranges. Don't compare them. This is where everybody gets bogged down, even the scientists. Don't compare them. They're a different methodology, a different approach. One is mimicking nature, the other one doesn't mimic nature. Okay? Does that mean I throw the old soil test away? No. I use certain things of it, but I do not make my recommendations for fertilizer with the old test. So do not compare apples and oranges. Please understand, they're not the same test. Okay. 2, this test is very sensitive. If you take them in the spring, be consistent. Take them in the spring again, because if you take it in the spring and you take it in the fall, it's going to be different. It better be different. How many had a cookie this morning? A cookie a while ago? Raise your hand. How many of us ate? Blood sugar before you ate, blood sugar after you ate. Is our blood sugar the same? No. Soil changes that quick, guys. One drought, aggregation goes down. Flooding, respiration goes down, aggregation goes down. Soil changes every day. That's why I think it's the stupidest idea is to pay you for carbon. You're set at this level, you have a drought, they measure your soil, hey, you went down, you need to pay us back. It's like me paying you for your blood sugar. What a stupid idea. If we're going to pay people, you know what we're paying for? Biodiversity. Way easier to measure. Do you know we have machines that can send a beam of radiation, red waves, and can count insects that cross it? You heard bird calls? There's way easier parameter. Can you imagine if we paid everybody satellite imagery, snapshot? Oh, it's green. Oh, you planted a 5-way mix. We're done. Verified. Oh, no, but we're going to go spend hundreds of millions. Do you know how much it cost Gabe Brown to do 160 acres of incredible carbon count? It was a couple $100,000. Who's going to do that? What army's going to do this? You can tell with people that do not understand agriculture and do not have the armies to do this or the technology yet. Okay, let's bring this up. I'm going to show you how to read this, and you can interpret your own Haney test. I use it in grazing systems, cropping systems. Oh yes, I even use this in rangeland. You can calibrate this for rangeland. Okay, the first column is indicators, the parameters. Organic matter, water, extractable soluble carbon. I'm reading the first column. Respiration is the work. And notice how I look at the third column. I gave you the name of the meaning of the indicators. Organic matter, I call it the dynamic house. Why do I call organic matter the dynamic house? the temporary energy storage. It changes every minute. We think it's supposed to be static and have the same amount of organic matter every year. It doesn't work that way. It's like fat in your body. Once your body starts to use the energy, it brings on the fat. Takes sugar first. Okay. The third, groceries, food, energy, circle that. Refrigerator. If I have a really small refrigerator, I cannot get work. Notice the parameter. I want to see 150 and above. CO2 respiration, I like to see 200 parts per million and above. Percent MAC, that is the efficiency of the microbes to process the carbon. And if you want to know more research about this, go on to and type Richard L. Haney on Google Scholar. All this is peer-reviewed. Next one is organic nitrogen to the inorganic nitrogen. What does that mean? When I have organic nitrogen with a carbon molecule attached to an inorganic, as your soils get healthy, guess what goes up first? Organic nitrogen. And how do I get organic nitrogen? Organic carbon. I want to see that 1 and above. Next one. I want to see range of 25 and below to 1. What does that mean? If your carbon to nitrogen ratio changes, if you have too much carbon around the rhizosphere, you're going to have nitrogen tie up and your corn's going to be yellow. How many understand carbon to nitrogen ratios? All of us should understand. Should buy a sophomore soils book. If you don't understand carbon to nitrogen ratio, you're lost. You're a lost ball in tall weeds. You need to understand what your soils are going to do. When you have wheat out there, what do you think the carbon to nitrogen ratio of this underwear is? How much carbon in cotton? That's a lot of carbon in there. Mostly carbon, very little nitrogen. What it's saying is if you have wheat, it's 80 to 20 to 1, 100 to 1, right? Pretty close. 100 molecules to every 1 molecule of nitrogen. So the greener the plant, the more nitrogen. I want to see the soil below 25 to 1. Why? So you got better cycling. If you have too much carbon in the soil, you're going to have nitrogen tie-up. We're talking about we're talking about the porosphere. Now, let me give you an example. Go to the far right column, you see organic dairy. Everybody with me? That green column? These are actual sites. Ohio, these are 2 dairies. Organic pasture dairy, and then there's an organic dairy with lots of tillage and covers. They're real close to each other. Look at the percent organic matter on the pasture dairy, 7.3. The guy that does a lot of tillage, he has a lot of red equipment. He loves equipment. Good farmer, though. 271 parts per million. Look how much groceries. That Ohio dairy is the one that had over 80 earthworms per cubic foot. Look at the organic dairy, 152. Look at the respiration, 286. And look at the one with covers, 53. Look how the tillage impacted. Now look at the efficiency of the microbes, 105 to 35. Look at the organic nitrogen molecules, 2.6 molecules of organic nitrogen to 1, 2.6 ratio to 1. The other one's 1.7. Both are good. They both are under the 25. Now here is the most important thing you guys need to walk away with today. Look at the column. The traditional nitrate soil test gave that system, that Ohio pasture dairy unit credits $14 pounds of N. The Haney says, nope, you have 72 pounds. Look at the organic phosphorus. Look how much money he saved that organic dairy by using the Haney test. $37.25. Multiply that by 1,000 acres. Does that pencil out? Heck yeah. Look at the dairy with covers. Old test gives him credit for 8. He actually has 42. Look at the soil health scores on both of them. 28 for the pasture dairy, 9. And notice on the bottom I have a column here. Poor 0 to 7, fair 7 to 14, good 14 to 20, excellent 20 to 50. Now, Russell Hidrick, the one that won the yield contest, next column over. Or that's the green one, NCE. He's comparing his neighbor is across the fence. Guess who had the most crappiest soil score? The conventional no-till. Lowest organic matter. Look at the numbers. Look at his soil health score. 3.3 soil health score. Russell's is 18. This is the young kid that won the yield contest with 454 bushel per acre for the yield contest. Now you know how to read your own soil test. Now here's what I want you to, I'm going to show you how to. Now here's the plot here. Everybody with me? This is the Haney test. You go to Regen Ag Lab. It's the only lab that does it. Now some people will tell you they're doing the Haney test. Unless I know about them, I'm not going to promote them. Because if I don't know they're using the water analyzers, which are $50,000 a piece, I am not going to promote something that I don't know. Unless you go to Regen Ag and go through them, because I know they use the protocol and Rick works with them now. Oh, by the way, I do not get paid and I do not get kickback from this. My name on this. My job is to help you reduce fertilizer. Okay, now, because we didn't get the color, this is supposed to be, this is copied. Please go down 1, 2, 3 columns and look under soil health. Everybody with me. But before you do that, thank you, Stephanie. Look at this. I just saw this. Everybody look at this picture. Everybody with me? Yep, got it. That's strawberries from California. We're going to read 2 soil tests. Strawberries from California and the edge of the field of a native pasture. Okay? We're going to show you what the soil health score says to that. Ready? Let's go to the, let's see which one this one is. Yep, the first one is the strawberries. Yep, first one's the strawberries. Everybody look at this. Third column down. It says nitrogen, other soil measurements, and look at soil health. Everybody with me? Okay? What did I say in my guide I want at the minimum? Look at that. It's respiration. How does the strawberries look? What's the respiration? Stephanie, what's the number? 10.3. 10.3. Those are strawberries we buy at your grocery store. How healthy do you think when they have a respiration, the soil has 10.3? Look at the water-soluble carbon. Read the other one, Stephanie.
77.
How about the percent MAC, Stephanie?
15.3.
How good is that? What did I say I want for percent MAC at the minimum?
200.
Yeah. How about the soil health score? 3. Those are strawberries we buy. They're from California. Now, now what do you get? What credit do we give them? What's the traditional soil test give them credit for, Stephanie? 6.7. What does the Haney say you got?
14.7.
So, even how crappy and unhealthy their soil, they still get some credit. Now let's flip it over to look at the virgin soil. Hasn't been tilled for years. You know what the rotation is? You know what an acre goes for in California? About 50 grand. You know what the rotation is? Strawberry lettuce, strawberry lettuce. If I bring cover crop and mention cover crop, what do you think they'll do to me? They will laugh in your face. So how do I help a producer like them? Any ideas? They're not going to do covers. They're not going to reduce tillage.
Rotation?
They're not going to rotate. I would love for them to rotate. You know what I do with them? Bring the Haney test, and I can use vermiculture, and I can tell them to use earthworm poop, use algae. I can help the rhizosphere. I can help them with a lot of the diseases, but I am not going to save them.
And they're still heavily tilled systems, aren't
They still, but they have drip. And at least I can make the rhizosphere a little more healthier and have less disease issues. And we can spray some of these compost extracts and some of these biologicals into the rhizosphere. That's all I can help them. My sister's a chemo nurse. All I can do is take you to hospice and make you feel better. Sorry, that's where I can take you. But you need to understand where you can take the producer, but you still can help even them. I can reduce some of their inputs. I can go to organic form. When I go to a doctor, I don't go to a regular doctor. I go to a functional doctor. They use biological approach to me, not a cut and chemistry approach. Now let's look at the virgin. Stephanie, read the virgin, please.
Oh, soil restoration, 118. Organic carbon, 394. MAC, what does MAC stand for again?
The efficiency of the microbes to process the carbon. How good can they eat the food?
MAC, but what is it? It's an acronym, right?
Yeah, it's an acronym, but I don't remember. It's the microbial aspect. You'll find it in his tab.
I'll find it.
Just understand this. That's the efficiency of the microbes to process the food.
Okay, 30. And the soil health score is 19.74.
And that hasn't been grazed for years and is unhealthy grass. Has not had cows for years. This is how, now read the nitrogen.
3.9. And the Haney test is showing 42.5.
Showing a savings of what?
40 buckaroos.
Okay, now, the last sheet. Everybody turn to this, how you use this test. Everybody with me? Okay. Todd. Okay, who grows corn here? Anybody? Todd? What kind of bushels do you shoot for here? I mean, realistic yield. Notice how I use the word realistic. 200. Okay, 200. Perfect. Look at this. Okay, the example is 200 bushel corn. Okay, so you take both soil 1 and soil 2. Notice that first thing, nitrate nitrogen. You take the credit for the nitrate nitrogen. Now, look at soil 1. With a soil respiration of 20 parts per million, WEOC, that's the water-soluble carbon. WEOC means water extractable nitrogen, water extractable carbon. This one's got 220, and recommendations with the soil health score is 180. You need to apply 180 pounds, assuming 1 unit of N for every 1 bushel. Soil 1 needs 180 pounds of N. Soil 2, look at the respiration, 200. Water-soluble carbon is 400. Soil health score, you only need 40 units of N. So, you get the nitrate credit and the organic, and so guess what? You don't have to apply 160 units. You only apply 40, Todd, to get 200 bushel corn. Yes, sir?
Are both of these N recommendations off the Haney test?
Yes.
For the
Yes, sir.
soils? Okay.
Yes. So, look at the score. If your score is 8, you need to put 180 pounds. If you have a soil health score of 26, you only have to put 40. We finally have a test to give you guys credit. You who are farming 2 or 3 or 4 or 5,000 acres. I finally have a test that I can back you off on the phosphorus and potassium. Now, yes, sir.
What happens if you get a year like this, it just keeps raining and raining and raining? Our experience is if you haven't put nitrogen on, you know, no matter what your soil test is, if you haven't supplied it with plenty of nitrogen, you're gonna suffer. It's just gonna get yellow and you're not gonna get it back.
Exactly. I didn't tell you not to use nitrogen, did I? So guess what I would do, Todd? I'd take another soil test. Because you know what? You're going to lose a lot of it anyway. It's going to leach. It's going to be soluble. The microbes are going to make it in a soluble form. Guess what form does not leach as readily? The organic form. The organic form doesn't leach as much as the inorganic form. That's why it's so important. You're exactly right, Todd. You're spot on.
Would you recommend something like a 2x2 on the planter, put like 30 units down, or would you say wide drops in season, top dressing?
Young Russell has changed everything to liquid fertilizer, and he puts it below the root zone, so it's there, and he puts biologicals there because he doesn't make the salts. So remember, these are salts. We have seen rice, as soon as the roots reach that heavy salt area, it makes them pale. They'll turn almost pale white. They'll go down this way. Careful with the caustic salts. You do not want to be approached with the wrong man-made chemicals. You want to be approached the right way with nature's molecules. Same thing. So you have to be very careful of the forms of fertilizer you use. So I go with a low salt index. Use more of the humic acids, mix it. Also put some of the biologicals. Don't be throwing pellets everywhere because you got a pellet here, a pellet there. Is very inefficient, very expensive. By the way, let's make this clear. You see those trees back there? Everybody look at those trees. What percentage of that biomass comes from the soil? Anybody?
Is it
5%. 5% of the biomass comes from, less than 5% comes from the soil. You know where that's coming from? The air. They turn it into carbon, look little wafers. That, you know what you're feeding your cows, guys? Air. We got a great Ponzi scheme growing, guys. Capture sun, sell air. A majority comes in air. That carbon is from the air. Very little comes from the soil, guys. But the little that comes in the soil really counts. Have you ever took a whole 250 pounds of fertilizer, equivalent to a whole acre, and actually spread it around 43,560 square feet? Pellet here, pellet here, pellet here. Pissing away a bunch of fertilizer. So what I'm saying to you is, why do we start doing our own science and start calibrating our soils? Give us 3 years to doing that. And you know the best way to do it? Working as a group. Can you imagine if you had 5 people in your group? You know what we do in North Carolina, in Missouri? We have a grazing group. Every summer we go to each other's farms. There's a group of us, and we go lovingly critique each other and learn from each other. But we work in a group. Can you imagine here, guys, if you guys worked in a group? You had 5 guys in your group, and you all did 5 years of research on your place? Let me tell you one thing. I'm 63. I'll be lucky if the good Lord gives me another 17. I got 17 opportunities. Opportunities. You have to wait a whole year to see the whole thing around. But if you work as a group, and you got 5 in your group, you got 5 years of research in 1 year. You know the interesting thing about Americans? Me included, because I'm American. We'll die by ourselves. We'll financially die by ourselves, and we don't talk to each other. We think we're competing with our neighbor. You're not. You're competing against the markets, the corruption of everybody controlling you. I say work as a team. You know what the Australians do? There's a consultant. His name is Martin. He asked there's about 50, 100 producers in there. They work as a team. He asked the producers, raise your hand. How much of you can apply fertilizer in a timely manner? Some raise their hand. How many of you can spray in a timely manner? Some raise their hand. Then he tells the rest of you that did not raise your hand, I want you to go home, go look in the mirror and call yourself a taxi driver. You don't belong here. We have to be very intentional if you want to get freedom, guys. Where's our cover crop research designs to see what really works here? We need to work as a team. I'm saying calibrate your own field. Do your own research. That's what makes Russell so different. He's not any smarter than anybody else. He's intentional. How can we be more intentional? And how can we, NRCS, can we help our producers? Now, I give my NRCS peers this advice. Go learn with a producer, go help him out, and keep your mouth shut. Don't let anybody know that you're helping somebody because they'll stop you. Because then they'll say, well, how come you're not doing your programs? NRCS, you have a lot to be able to help. That's what this is about. Do you know why soil health became so important? Farmers don't want to hear about other things. How can you help them reduce the inputs and bring life, financial life to their families? How can you save them money? That's what they want. How do they survive in a system that is not designed for them? Let's make it very clear who the system is designed. For everybody that sells things to you. That's who the system is designed for. From Washington all the way down to the bottom. Understand that our conservation programs has also facilitated the poverty in rural America. CRP land check does not go to the person locally. It's the person who owns the land. That's why young people have a hard time coming into agriculture. People want to come into agriculture. There's no space for them. Any comments, any questions about the Haney test? You guys comfortable you can read your own test? It's pretty simple. Please keep this in mind. If the Haney gives you credit for 50 units, take it to the bank. Phosphorus is the same way. I also use it as a powerful tool. Let me give you an example and shut up and we'll open it for questions and answers and let you go free. In Pennsylvania, there's two producers. One uses cover crops and no-till, the other one does not. But the sewage coming from dairies is very toxic when it goes anaerobic. One producer spread it out 6,000 gallons at a swat, broke it up 3 times, used cover crop and no-till. The Haney test and the other dumped 20,000 plus gallons at one time. The Haney test showed respiration went to the toilet, nutrient cycling collapsed, corn turned yellow, and still had to put another couple 100 pounds after all that dairy manure. The one that split the 3 times, using cover crop and no-till, needed no fertilizer at all. Earthworms were dead on top. Manure stored in storage lagoons are toxic. Nature does not store manure that way. She stores it in an aerobic system. Toxic byproducts. Careful what you do with your manures. And more manure is not better. I am very cautious. Once I see dairies go over 200 pounds, 250, I said, no more manure on this field, move it, because then you shut down the mycorrhizae and will not build an association when the soil is drenched with phosphorus. Now I'm going to have zinc, trace mineral problems in my field. Understand how the biology is doing what it's doing. Any comments, questions? Yeah, but? Oh, by the way, I would soil test this way. How many have soil core testers? This is what I do for my fields. If I have a soil texture that's very, very different, very sandy, very clay, treat them separately. Do the clay differently, do the sand differently. Get as many cores as possible. Get a 5-gallon bucket, mix it, and you're going to take a 1-pound baggie and you send the Haney test in. For that, say you do 100 acres, half of it's 50 acres of a sand, 50 acres is clay. That's 2 soil tests. Test costs $65. Do you know what I call when the farmer tells me I'm not going to pay $65? You know what I tell him? Don't call me. Do not waste my time. If you don't want to save $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, knock yourself out. Take him, according to Nebraska, 0 to 8. It's up to you. 0 to 8, 0 to 12, but you need to mark it on the soil test. Please mark it.
Usually here, 0 to 6 and 6 to 12.
Whatever you want to do, sir. But here's what I also would do, Todd. For the first time, I would do 0 to 6 and 6 to 12. I want to know what I have. And there's another test I should have put here. Write this down. Please ask for this test. It's called Total Dissolved Nutrients. Is the TDN? Nutrient Digestive Test. We need to ask him what that test is. It tells you what nutrients you have total in your soil. They use very strong acids. It'll show you how much total phosphorus you have, total potassium, total zinc. You want to know what you have in CDs. The Haney says what you got available in your checking account this year. Total nutrient dissolved, what's it called?
Total digested nutrients.
TDN. Total digested nutrients tells you what you have total in your soils. I would do that. Know how much you have total nutrients in your soil. But remember, the Haney was only going to give you what the roots can see and the microbes can make available this year. You can take credit this year, okay? Need to have a benchmark condition. Please benchmark your soils. Another thing I would do, this is me personally. Huh?
Is that a separate sample, or do they take it out of the same?
You use the same bag, but you need to ask for it. Good question. Another thing I would do is I would take an undisturbed site, like that wooded area. I would sample that. I want it as a reference point. And there's another test we didn't have enough time to talk about. It's called phospholipid fatty acid. I got mixed feelings about that test. It's good. That means all organisms have fatty lipids in your bodies, in your cells. It's another good possible test. But there's another one called Earth4. That's a little more expensive. It's about $180, and they actually count protozoa, nematodes, and that kind of stuff. I like that test, but it's expensive. I would use that if you have a problem soil. I would only do it once, kind of a benchmark condition. I want to see protozoa, and I want to see fungal to bacteria ratios. That is incredibly important because we don't have enough time. This is a 3-day school. I don't know if you realize this is a 3-day school. What we did today is give you a splattering of it. Russell and I teach a nutrient management school, and it's for 2 days at least a minimum. So he is good at nutrient management. High yields, 80 bushel soybean is very common for that young man. He has taken this to a science. We can bring him here to teach nutrient management. We can teach it together. So you need to ask the man and the lady. You can bring him here. I think he's one of the best in the country. And I've been everywhere. Nobody manages nutrients as good as he does, because he does research. Questions? Let's open it up to question and answers. Everybody clear? And by the way, guys, this works on pastures too. Love the results on pasture systems. I have done my whole forest, pastures, CRP. I can tell CRP by just looking at the Haney test. A lot of carbon, no nitrogen, and very little respiration. You start getting intuitive. Okay, 2 books I recommend for all my peers. Soil Ecology by Patrick Lavelle. 3 books I recommend. Soil Ecology by Dr. Patrick Lavelle and Dr. Coleman also. That's another good book. Please get them. Holistic Management by Alan Savory. Changed my life. And the Agroecology by Dr. Gleesman. Stephen Gleesman, Agroecology textbook. I buy every book I can on soil ecology and agroecology. Holistic management is number 1. Who was that by? Ellen Savory. Gabe Brown read it, I read it, Jay Fuhrer read it. All of us have been impacted by him. Alejandro Carrillos, we turned the desert back into prairie. Ellen impacted them. All of us have been impacted by him. The man that killed 14,000 elephants and people were pissed. But he doesn't realize how much he's changed the world and helped all of us. Questions? Now is your time. We got 30 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, but, Ray, we wish you never come. Whatever you want to do. I'm good.
You said there's still valuable information in our traditional soil tests.
Yes. Cation exchange capacity could be helpful. You tell me if it's a certain texture. Haney gives you organic matter. Just tells me how big my house. Helpful. But for recommendations, I will not use it. Don't use it for nitrogen recommendations. In fact, Tennessee University doesn't even give you nitrate recommendations. They don't even give you credit for the cover crop. So when you're ready to put phosphorus, potassium, and all your stuff, follow the Haney test. If you're growing soybean, if it's asking you're deficient, follow it. That's why Russell gets such good yields. Follow the test. Why does it work? 2 major components. It mimics the root of the acids, says reality, and the water sophisticated machines. They pick up and give you credit for the organic nitrogen. So follow it. Other than that, pH, by the way, if you want to get really sophisticated about pH, according to one professor that I thought was very fascinating, do anybody know who discovered pH, by the way? It's Dr. Sorsen. But you know pH was never intended to be used in a mineral matrix. It was supposed to be for water and blood. Caution with pH. Plants change pH. It's a barometer. Some of our tools are very crude. Organic matter is a very crude parameter. Why? They burn it off. Please understand the elegance of nature. Every molecule counts. Is your test passive or is it intrusive? When you go to the right doctor, he knows how to read your body and he approaches it with the right molecules. The soil is the same way, guys. Approaches everything. How many of you are married? What would you have done if you would have approached your mate incorrectly? She would have beat you with a stick. You wouldn't be married. Masanobu Fukuoka, another book I would recommend, One Straw Revolution. Please read that book. That man taught me more ecology. Read every book that man buys, that he writes. Masanobu Fukuoka. One Straw Revolution. That man taught me more ecology than any man. He said, if you approach nature wrong, she will beat you with a stick. Approach is everything. This soil test is the right approach, guys. We finally have a test that mimics nature. So dang excited. Right approach. Questions? You guys are worn out. Yes?
Do you use boulders chart at all to kind of balance things?
Pardon me?
Boulders charts? It just talks about the interaction with if you put N on, what it does to your available P and K rates or your magnesium. It's as you put one nutrient out there, it changes your availability, whether it's more available or less available.
Yeah. We were talking, Todd was bringing up Kinsey and all these other people. I think what was that famous researcher from Missouri? Very well respected soil scientist. I think if he would have lived a little longer, I think he would have changed more to a biochemistry thought process. Folks, biochemistry changes inorganic chemistry. Let's help the soils balance themselves. Your body's very elegant, very sophisticated. Give it the right nutrients, it'll heal itself. But we're saying the same thing with the soils. Guys, you can go broke trying to balance your soils. Help it. Let's get the carbon flow going first. Bring the activity of the life of the microbes. They're the ones that make it soluble. They're the ones that build the organic matter to balance the soil so it buffers it. The glues, the aggregates that Stephanie was talking about, they create the habitat and they modify the life. I'm telling you, I took graduate level soil chemistry. I spent a whole semester learning chemical, and I would have been way better understanding the soil ecology because they modify the chemistry. I'm not saying you don't need an occasional lime in that, but let's have some perspective. Let's say you want to lower the pH. A soil 6 inches weighs 2.2 million pounds, and you put 4,000 pounds of lime. That's 2 tons. Divide 4,000 into 2.2 million. 0.000 whatever it is. It's like peeing against a tornado, you just get it all over you. Careful how much, if you're going to put calcium for calcium's sake, for the plant could use calcium. Careful how you use your chemistry. I don't have problems with all that, but I've seen covers do that themselves. Case in example, North Carolina, sandy soils. Sandy soils, sugar sand. Guess what they did? 3 years of covers, they had pHs of 5. They jumped 0.4 units. You know how hard it is to change chemistry? 0.4? It's hard, isn't it, Stephanie?
It's exponential, yeah.
3 years of covers did that. pH went up 0.4 of a unit. Phosphorus went up 15 pounds per acre. No phosphorus added on sand. 3 years of covers. They'll go down deep, bring up the calciums that you leach, redeposit to the top. The covers are no longer called cover crops. You know what I call them? Service crops. We came up with a better name. You know why I like service crops? You know who came out of that? Dr. Andres Kowalski from Venezuela. He says, Ray, I said, Andres, I hate cover crops, hate the name, because if I say cover crops to a farmer in the United States, they said, oh my God, I don't have an erosion problem. He goes, well, why don't we call them service crops? I like service crops. They service the microbes. They service the climate. They service the bank. They service everything because your service crops gets it ready for the next year for the crops. They service the water cycle. They service the nutrient cycle. They service the climate. Service crops way better than cover crops or biological primers. Yes, sir.
So how much biomass are you looking for in cover crops? Like, I never want a real heavy stand because I don't want.
Yeah, good question, Todd. You know, when you guys have heavy clay soils, I back off on the rye. I'd shoot for about 30 pounds to the acre. Because you've got to have some enough spacing to let some of the sun come in. But I want enough canopy that I can roll it. I want to roll it. I love rolling it. I want that blanket. I want that instant skin. I want to back off on my herbicide. If I can create that blanket, Todd, that saves me 1 herbicide application, almost close to 2. That's me personally when I have a heavy clay soil. But if I'm further south, but if you're an organic, depends on your context. My favorite word. If I listen to Wisconsin, what's her name, that wonderful, Aaron. I love Aaron. They're doing, what is it, 120 pounds of cereal rye?
Some really high amount, yeah.
Yeah, 120, but they're organic. Their weed suppression is phenomenal. They'll plant the soybean directly. In 2 weeks, when the soybeans are about that high.
It's gone through the crook stage because you don't
Yeah,
want to do it when it's
good,
cooked.
yeah. Roll it. It's great. Does not bother the soybean, but it gives them a couple extra weeks, and their weed suppression is phenomenal. Yes, sir.
Are they just rolling with a smooth roller, or is it a roller crimper?
They're using a roller crimper.
And it's jointed so that it does?
Yeah. I rolled mine with a Volkswagen diesel. Ray Steyer's using an old crappy cultipacker that did not work. He's rolling covers without a crimper. David Brandt bought him a crimper just before he passed away. It's about laying it down at the right time, at the dough stage, when you're ready to lay down. I have guys, what's his name? He's been rolling covers for 10 years in Wisconsin. Tony Pedrick. You know Tony. Done a great job. He's been rolling covers for cereal rye for 10 years in Wisconsin. And I think he's a little north of Madison. He's been having great success for years. Yes, sir.
I'm just scaring something off. It's flying around here.
Oh, the fly. Any other questions?
So in those continuous heavy coverage going scenarios, what are they using to manage their carbon-nitrogen ratio? I mean, that's getting a very carbon-heavy system.
That's a good question. That's why you have to put the fertilizer up front and make sure the carbon penalty. As your soils get healthier, that's going to be less of a penalty. That's why Russell, when he gets ready to plant corn, he puts his fertilizer about 4 or 5 inches under, and so that when he's ready, you account for that penalty. But he gets nitrogen on the back end. When that cover crop breaks down, you're going to get nitrogen on the back end. Oh, by the way, he won the yield contest on a non-GMO, the old varieties. We've screwed up the varieties of the corns too. They love nitrogen, don't build association with fungi. He's been using an old variety, and that's how he's winning the yield contests, with older varieties. So he saves $110 or $100 an acre, or 2 acres, on seed by not buying GMO. So it all depends where you want to take this to. But offset that carbon penalty, because you're right. Cover crops will suck up the nitrogen, but they'll release it to you later on. He's got it down to a science. When's that second release coming in the season? Because they break down and you'll get it. As your soils get healthier and healthier and healthier, they will cycle quicker and you will have less of that carbon penalty. But at the upfront, please remember your context. Soils are degraded. Remember what happened to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka wanted to go organic, failed miserably because they didn't understand their context and where they were at. You have to do this gradually. As your soils get healthier and better, you start using cover crops more religiously, soils start changing quicker. You have less smearing. Your planting is better. Your stands become easier. Those aggregates and those glues do not smear like the ones that with the regular fields. You can get in quicker. You can hold up the tractor better. You have less maintenance in your tractors because you don't have blowing dirt into your filters. On and on and on, but we don't see the benefit of the cover crops because they all see is it cost me $30 this year, and you're not seeing the length of your rotation and what it can save you down the road. Covers pay for themselves very easily. You've got to be committed to it. I'm not saying it's easy. It's going to be hard work. Other questions? You guys look like you're done. You are toast. Thank you guys for coming, and I appreciate it. That I think Mark and Stephanie and the rest of you guys get credit for bringing us together. Mark worked really hard to write the grants. Tim and the rest of you, let's give them a hand, please. Bring me over here. Thank you.